Hey everybody, I'm Yvonne Williams with Back to Earth Creations, and in this video I want to show y'all my favorite way of twisting wire using a CD. And this is a 1 pound weight, but you could use, if you have like a metal pipe connector or just something around a pound, I have found is a really good weight. You can experiment and see what works best for you, but I'm just going to show y'all how I've done it. Now I've gone through and I've punched 1, 2, 3, 4, 12 12 holes. You don't have to do so many, but I wanted to give myself some options. You'll need at least 5 holes, but I wanted to be able to use one CD for all of my wire twisting purposes. So let's get the camera flipped around and get started. So I'm beginning with some 18 gauge wire. This is just what I have. If you have something like very inexpensive fencing wire or anything like that, but I'm gonna cut 2 10-inch lengths of this. It's probably a little bit more than what I need, but that's okay. And I'm just using regular like electrical flush cutters. I found those are probably one of my favorites. They're like very inexpensive. All the links, by the way, for the tools and materials used in this video will be down in the video description. But they're very inexpensive, so I don't feel bad if I like mess them up by snipping through like memory wire or something that like messes up the tips. And I'm going to come in around one end of our weight, and I'm just bringing it around. And you can make this however cute and fancy as you like. I just need it to hold together. So I'm doing a little twist tie twist. And I don't want pokey bits for poking. So I'm just going to bend that around so that it's not going to like scrape me or get snagged or something whenever we get into twisting our wire. Doing that same thing on the other end. And then just bending that around. You could just snip it flush, but meh, I like the little loops. So now we have our little weight. The first time I had made this, I had used like some old leather cord, and that eventually rotted through, but you really can, like, I've done a design as well where I just used hair ties, but that was probably the least successful of all of them. So I'm going to be picking 2 holes that are equidistant, like, or rather opposite, sorry, words, yeah, opposite of each other on our CD here. And then if I only had to pick 3 other holes, I would have tried to do an equilateral triangle. That way, that's like the minimum that I recommend for twisting wire together. Though I guess you could just do 2, in which case I do an equilateral, and then I'd have 2 more holes. So I'm just threading this through, and you want to leave a little bit of space. Like, I guess you could do it where the CD's butted up against the weight, but I find it's nice to be able to get my hand in there. But I do want it to be kind of flat, like parallel to the weight. That way our spin doesn't get all wobbly and weird. So now that we've got that, I'm just coming down and very messily twisting this. You don't want it so tight that it's going to be putting a bunch of pressure on the CD. And the reason why I chose an 18 gauge wire for this is because I didn't want it to be all floppy and weird. Though it does work, honestly, just as well. When it's floppy and weird, it's just personal taste. So, getting that little pokey bit spiraled around. And so now the tool itself is complete. For demonstration purposes, I have 3 different colors of 26 gauge wire. This works well for, gosh, I've used as thick as 20 gauge, but I had some trouble with it. I really preferred it for 22, 24, 26, and 28, and even 30 gauge wires. And I use Parawire for all of my work. just because I like them and they're super affordable. But these are the 3 colors that I'm using. They're all enameled, that way they don't tarnish. But again, you can use whatever wire that you like. I do prefer this method actually with Parawire's bare copper wire, because if it gets very, very work hardened, I can anneal it with just a little butane cooking torch. But we'll get to that in future videos. So I'm going to come through and I'm going to attach 1 wire through 1 hole. Just bringing it through and giving it 2, 3, 4, 5 twists and setting it off to the side. And now I'm going to grab another wire and come to a kind of triangulate. The key is that I found is that however many wires that you're using, you just want to keep them equidistant from each other. Kind of works. Gets the best results. And then threading through our 3rd hole. And the next step after this comes in really handy if you have like a hook in a door frame or a tall friend or anything like that. But it'll make more sense again whenever we get over there. So let's go ahead and do that. Okay, so the main thing to keep in mind whenever you're hanging this is you want your CD to be like plumb to the ground. You don't want it super sideways. So whenever we're hanging it, we're just going to want to make sure that our wires are all like, so that we want it parallel to the ground. So keeping our CD nice and parallel to the ground, I am going to bring our wires up like this, and I'm just kind of sliding along. I've got this way heavier duty than what I need. You could do this with just a cup hook, or like a friend holding on to like a dowel or something. You don't want to do it with your finger going through it, because then it's going to just like slice that off. Well, I don't know if it'll slice it off. That'd be pretty hardcore, but you don't want to risk it. So again, double checking our CD, coming through, just looping the wire through here. Double, triple checking that our CD is nice and parallel to the ground. And then this is a little taller than what I'm comfortable with, but I didn't want to go get a step ladder. So you can see, let's get in closer. So here you can see we're just hooked around this rigging in the wall, and we have our 3 wires coming down to our CD contraption. So what we're gonna do here, and I'm gonna try to do this a couple of times so we can get a couple of different angles. Let me get back on the tripod. Okay, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna come in and we are just going to spin, oops, my finger slipped, the weight and the CD. And you just want to make sure that you keep spinning in the same direction every time. So I'm going to move the camera and get another angle, but that's, we're just spinning it. So hopefully this captures what is happening with the wire as we spin it. So I'm just going to get back down here, and we are spinning now. And it wobbles a bit back and forth. Oh, so that was 1 spin. Now let's give it another solid. It's 3, 4, 5 spins of the weight with the CD, and then 6. And you can spin it however tight or loose as you like. And I keep just looking up and checking in as I go. And I think I'm gonna do, oh, that looks pretty nice. I'm gonna do 1 more. There we go. So to take it off, I just snipped it up by the door frame. And you can see there are a little bit of, I don't know, maybe it's just the way the light hits it, but it's a little weird here on the end, so I'm just going to snip that off. And then I'm going to follow the full length of our wire down to where it stops being twisted together. I'm going to snip that there as well. And then I like to take that wire off. You can either use this to attach more wires by just making a loop on the end for them to attach to. That way, more of like if you were doing this, say, out of like sterling silver or something, that way you aren't wasting that like 10 to 12 inches that doesn't get twisted, which you could twist it, but just because of the angle that it's coming off of the main twisty part, it has to get this wire so tight to be able to twist up, you know, right within that 10 to 12 inch range. So just, I don't know, I think it'd be fun to hear what y'all do to experiment with this, and also to see what y'all make with this, because like I kind of really like the way that this is looking. Let's get a closer angle so you can really see here now the way that those wires twist together, and it's very different of effect than taking like a square wire and a vise, or like a pen vise, and twisting it. But yeah, I'll usually make about 5 foot long sections of this at a time, and then save it because I really like it for making, let's say, wire wrapped rings. Because if I had on hand, I have like a little gauge thingy, but it makes it almost a 20 gauge, using 3 of the 26. I hear you, train. 3 of the 26 gauge wires, so you can make a much thicker wire. And then, but it's still, I don't know, it has a lot more flexibility and almost drape to it than if I were using just a 20 gauge wire. So as a real quick project, something that I like to do with this wire, I'm going to come in, I'm going to give myself about 14 inches of it. And I'm going to snip, just like that. And set the remainder off to the side. And I'm going to come in, and I wear about a size 9 sometimes, so let's make it a little bit larger than what we need. And I'm just going to twist around on the mandrel, and since this is a thinner wire, I'm going to make our base band 4 wraps wide. Oops, wasn't even in frame. So I've wrapped around the mandrel 4 times, and then coming around on each side, making sure we're not crossing over or anything. And then just coming in and getting both of the wires going off in the same direction. And I'm just going to start making like a little rosette. Oops. And just pressing down on my thumb to keep everything in one plane. And I think I'm going to bring it up, and I'm going to stop here because that should be enough that we can bind off our wire. So that's how it's looking so far. And I'm just going to take that and I'm going to bend it around a few times. I like to come in. Now the only thing is on the ends, it does start to get a little weird because we've got 3 very thin wires instead of just 1 thicker wire to make sure that it gets smushed down. So with finger rings and stuff like that, if you ever run your fingers through your hair, it can get really complicated. But if you were doing this with sterling silver or copper, which even the silver filled, by the way, from Parawire, you can solder and stuff, you could just join the tips before you started wrapping, if you know roughly about how much wire you're going to need, or if it's something like this where it's not too finicky, and it'll keep those 3 little wires from being troublesome. Like, that train is making actually the window shake in the frame. That's pretty something else. So, and you can see everything gets a little weird. So we're putting it back on the mandrel to give it a stretch. And I really like the organic look and feel of this twisted wire. So now we can just slide that right on. There we go. And that is how that twisted wire looks. So yeah, And the possibilities really are endless. You can, as an accent wire, this stuff's pretty cool. So I do hope that this was helpful to you guys. And also, if y'all have any alternatives that maybe are a little bit easier, this is just the way I've been making twisted wire. So I'd love to hear how y'all go about doing this. Hey y'all, thank you so much for hanging out with me during this video. I do hope that it was helpful to you or inspiring in some way to maybe get your creative juices going. But if you have any questions, comments, or ideas, please leave them down below. There are links to all the tools and materials in the video description, as well as ways that you can contact us, ways that you can support us on Patreon and join our Craft Along Club and Facebook and Instagram and just all that stuff is down below. Speaking of patrons, though, I do really want to thank all of our supporters over on Patreon and everybody who's been subscribing and everything. Like, I'm really excited to have y'all along for the ride, and I'm really excited to bring y'all some more tutorials and some more cool stuff in our Craft Along kits. So, but yeah, I think that's it. This is actually, at the time of recording, this is my very first video of 2020. So hello, future people. We are in the future now. It is 2020. That's exciting. It's hitting me in waves. So until next time, you guys, happy crafting. Bye.